To Scotland and Andrew McGregor Marshall Lecturer at Edinburgh Napier University. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Thanks for inviting me.
The three-day ceremony, the first in 7 decades. Before we talk about the politics, just to put it in perspective for us, just how much this matters to ordinary Thais.
Well, that's actually an open question. The Thai monarchy has traditionally been revered by Thais. And at previous royal events, when the previous king was appearing in public, the streets would be thronged with people. But the current king is much less popular than his predecessor. And there's been signs that this coronation won't really be quite as spectacular or as popular an event as maybe the government would have hoped.
Signs that they're won't be as spectacular. Is that because, well, he's already weighed in on politics, most notably during the recent general election?
That's certainly one reason. He's never been popular for many decades, and there was a lot of anger that they believe he was favouring the military junta in the previous election. So that's kind of added to his unpopularity among many Thais. There are still plenty who support the monarchy, but among many he's quite unpopular. So, for example, the Thais were told over the past month to wear yellow, which is the king's colour. But very few people were wearing yellow around the country. They kind of ignored this edict. We also know that the government's ordered 26,000 state employees to join the coronation processions to make it look like the crowds are bigger than they are. So all of this is a sign that the monarchy is rather losing its popularity. But of course, it's still going to be a very spectacular and lavish event.
A spectacular and lavish event with a new bride. What's been the reaction to the fact that he surprised a lot of people with this fourth wedding on Wednesday?
Well, his private life has always been quite notorious, and I think a lot of more conservative Thais have always disapproved of it. So he's been in a relationship with Sutida, a former flight attendant, for several years now, but the relationship was never officially acknowledged. She was appointed as his bodyguard. She was often seen in public with him, but Thais were never given any details about her. And then suddenly, in this surprise ceremony, as you say, their marriage was announced. So I think Thais were quite agog to see him.
Is this reputation as a playboy a bit of a lure, because that was the past, and it doesn't necessarily explain how he's going to govern going forward?
Sure, that's true. But it's more that some conservative Thais are just, expect the king to embody moral virtues. They've been a bit disapproving of his life. But I think the greater complaint from many Thais is his political interventionism, the way that he's really consolidated power under the military, and that Thailand is, in the views of many, is almost heading back towards absolute monarchy, where even though it had elections back in March, the military doesn't look like it wants to give up control. The palace controls the military. So you've got this kind of monarchy-military alliance that is still controlling Thailand, and the elections were really just window dressing. So for Thais, and especially younger Thais who want real democracy, they don't really have the same respect for the monarchy. A party that's quite radical and wants to cut down the role of the military, that did really well in the recent elections. It came third with more than 5 million votes. So all these are signs that Thailand is changing, and it's going to be hard for the monarchy to maintain this kind of absolutist regime in coming years.
And Andrew McGregor Marshall, you say that it's the palace that controls the military. It seemed up until recently that it was more the other way around, especially when Bhumibol was ailing and sick.
You're absolutely right. For a long time, most analysts would have said the military was really in charge and used the palace to give it legitimacy. But I think most analysts, including myself, now see things have changed because the current king is very interventionist. He's appointed key loyalists at the top of the military. And the military, the top leaders have come out in recent weeks and said, their ultimate duty is to support the monarchy. So the regime's kind of changed. It's a kind of merger of the palace and the military, if you like. But I think most people would agree that King Vajiralongkorn is by far the most powerful man in Thailand, more powerful than even the top generals.
Could it come to a head between him and the military? He himself used to be in the Air Force in the 1970s.
I don't see a challenge to him coming from the military because, as I mentioned, all of the top military are very loyal to him, and none of them would really dare raise a challenge. But where I think things may come to a head in coming years is that, as I mentioned, there's a lot of pressure for real democracy and real reform, especially from younger people. And so if we see the palace and the military installing another puppet government, which we may see after the coronation, I think there's going to be a lot of resentment building over years. Now, there's been several moments in Thai history where people have risen up and come onto the streets in protest against military rule and to demand democracy. And I think it's not unlikely we'll see a moment like that coming again in years to come.
Is it still, in the West, we sort of see it in broad brushstrokes, is it still that three-way sort of battle between conservatives, the military, and the opposition led by former Premier Thaksin Shinawatra?
Yeah, I mean, that's still the general outline of it. For more than a decade, Thailand has been stuck in this red versus yellow political conflict that's led to 2 coups and a lot of violence on the streets. But now I think that the red versus yellow era is slightly coming to an end, and it's now a clearer struggle between the conservatives in the palace, the military and the bureaucracy against younger people and rural Thais who are kind of sick of the lack of democracy and they really want change. So the struggles become more clear. The red versus yellow conflict was always quite difficult for outsiders to understand, but now it's a clearer conflict between really the forces of democracy against the old conservative forces symbolized by the monarchy.
Andrew McGregor Marshall, one final question. Over the next 3 days, what is the moment to watch?
I think the key thing to watch will be how many people you see on the streets and how much genuine emotion they're showing. And if we see that the turnout is much lower than it would have been at royal events in the past, and that the level of emotion and adoration people are showing is kind of less, I think that would be a really interesting sign, and it will be a signal that the days of the monarchy as an absolutist force may be coming towards an end.
Andrew McGregor Marshall of Edinburgh Napier University, thank you for joining us.